Carr. Cruz. Fox.
Here.
Frost. Here. Gaylord.
Present.
Guerra.
Here.
Hanson. Harris.
Here.
Kennedy. Lee.
Here.
Natoli. Peters. Cerna. And Terry.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, which today we'll have led by Director Frost.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So with that, we'll move on to the clerk announcement.
This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District is cablecast live without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T UVerse cable system. This meeting is being closed captioned and will be webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated on Sunday, October 28th, 2018 at 3 p.m. and Monday, October 29th at 1 p.m. on Channel 14. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker form located on the table at the back of the chamber and give it to the clerk. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Also, at this time, please silence your cell phones until the conclusion of today's meeting.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to the Air Pollution Control Officer's report. Dr. Ayala?
Give me 1 second. No mic.
Can you do it from there? Oh, there we go. I was getting ready to move. Good morning, board. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. The last meeting of 2018, hard to believe, but I appreciate you making the time for us. We have a number of items, as is customary, that we want to make you aware of. Today is going to be a bit of a tag team report. I have Mr. Lemos, one of our, he's our acting division manager for transportation and climate change division. He's going to help me report on a couple of items of importance because he's actually the one that was point contact on it. And we'll get to that right away. So the first thing is, and I would also invite Vice Chair Guerra to chime in as he deems appropriate. The first thing is, as you heard in September, a very important mission that our board members and our staff were on to Germany. So we'll let Mr. Lemos tell us a little bit about it.
Good morning. I'm Jaime Lemos, the acting division manager.
Is your mic on?
Yeah, the mic is not on. Does he
Take
turn it
two.
on? Or?
It's on.
There we go.
So good morning, my name is Jaime Lemos. I'm the acting division manager for the Transportation and Climate Change Division. So last month during our board meeting, Alberto mentioned that there were a few of us in Germany. The trip was organized by the Greater Sacramento Economic Council's President Barry Broom and Vice President of Business Development Neil Best. Participating was Yvonne Harris, Associate Vice President of the Office of Research Innovation and Economic Development at Sac State, and Michael Hasso, Assistant City Manager of the City of Sacramento. Our board members, Phil Cerna and Eric Guerra, and myself. The week-long trip consisted of back-to-back meetings in Aachen, Hanover, and Berlin. We were hosted by the Production Engineering of E-Mobility, the PEM group, of the RWTH University of Aachen, Germany, and met with various auto manufacturers, startup companies, potential investors, and visited the International Trade Fair for Mobility, Transportation, and Logistics in Hanover. The purpose was to observe, evaluate, and understand the PEM's innovation and ramp-up facility and determine whether this model fits our region. The partnership between PEM, the traditional auto OEMs, and the zero-emission mobility starter companies allow collaboration to reduce risk and serve as a catalyst to promote innovation in the mobile sector. What this could mean for the Sacramento region. The Sacramento Center of Future Mobility would be an innovation center and ramp-up factory for Sacramento. This center can connect the academic institutions, the manufacturers, CARB, and our district to drive zero-emission and autonomous mobility technology and policy. This is a key component, the opportunity to develop zero-emission and autonomous technology in Sacramento, here close to the Capitol and to ARB. Our district has the opportunity to drive local, state, and potentially national clean air policy. We had a chance to see many presentations and meet many companies. I was relieved to see that the zero-emission and autonomous efforts in Germany are not too far ahead from our own efforts here in California. However, the collaboration between PEM, the university, manufacturers, and local government to advance mobility manufacturing, workforce, and development with clean air goals was very impressive.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I could add, first of all, thank you. I want to thank the Air District and Mr. Limas for participating in this trip. We had a very targeted group of folks to look at how what this really means for the greater Sacramento region. With Supervisor Phil Cerna, who's also a member of this Air District and also a member of the Air Quality Management District, our economic chair, or the Assistant City Manager in Economic Development for the City of Sacramento, and also the Associate Provost for Sac State, who is looking at economic development for the university and the partners of the university. And obviously Greater Sacramento GSAC with Barry Broom and Neil Best. And what I think, and I want to underscore on this little diagram that we have here, it's the success story of a ramp-up factory. And they're the PEM, who focuses on not just research, but actually production and getting things up to scale for zero-emission technology, zero mobility technology. And our mission here in this board is to ensure that we have good air quality, that we maintain a healthy breathing. But for many of us in our respective cities and board of supervisors, our roles are in economic development and ensuring that we have jobs, that we have the future economic prosperity of our cities. And what is exciting about this is this institution would like to replicate that public-private partnership with their educational institution in the Sacramento region. And for the purpose of looking at zero-emission mobility. For us, I think this is an exciting opportunity because, as Mr. Lima said, we're not that far behind. But it could, what we saw there are a number of spin-off startup companies, but most importantly, it brought back manufacturing, particularly in a country like Germany, much like the United States, where no one ever thought manufacturing could come back to. And they did it through this ramp-up factory style. What the term they called it, I think, was primal style or whatnot. We got a kick out of that. But for them, I think they're interested in looking at the United States market and particularly Sacramento because the regulators are in Sacramento. We have a unique environment where we have both metropolitan, rural, and suburban, where it could be a testing site for the state. But most importantly, I think this collection of body, and we've seen it when we've gone to cap, it's a combination of local governments that we can work together. And those are the big three pieces. Can the local governments work together? Can the institutions and the universities and the private sector work together? But most importantly, it created true jobs and not just research for the sake of research and prototypes for the sake of prototypes, but actually producing the future of mobility in the region. And I think if we corner the market in Sacramento for e-mobility, we corner the market for the state, and then after that, when California sets regulations, the rest of the country follows. So.
Thank you. If I may, I just want to put a finer point on what Vice Chair Guerra said in terms of why we as a regional air district are investing our time and resources on this. The reason for that is as follows. There is obviously a role for public policy to promote this sort of development. So obviously for us, we're not necessarily after the brick and mortar development of something and the gizmos that you're going to make inside. But to the extent that that technology develops zero emission mobility, eventually you're going to have to take those gizmos and try them out. And I'm a strong believer that there is a key formula that involves federal, state, and local policies that can work in concert to promote this sort of development. Because, again, why we're interested in this, transportation is our biggest source of emissions. We got to electrify as soon as possible. To the extent that there is a technological solution, we can put in place the policies at the local level to promote that sort of development. So somebody like a Ford, like a Volkswagen, major companies can decide to come to Sacramento versus any other city in the US where you could make a brick and mortar sort of thing. The second thing is, maybe we don't have the authority to put some of these policies together. But we should be educating ourselves in terms of, to the extent that we come up with some idea, then we take it to our state body and say, we have the idea for the next rule, the next great policy that is going to come out of the California policy-making machine so that we can promote the technology. That is the opportunity for us. That is why we are investing and we're committed, and we welcome the opportunity to engage with GSEC and look forward to more of this. So we just wanted to give you an update, and we'll bring you more as the information rolls out, and we do a mind meld with some of you who went on the trip.
No, that was good. And you could, if you wanted to follow all of the postings, and we did, and it was in a pretty aggressive schedule. I think we started at 7:30 or 8 a.m. every day, and we finished up. The Germans don't mess around. They had us going till 8 o'clock at night. The finer point, the last point I think is, if we're going to move the needle on air quality, it's the non-stationary sources, right? It's all the mobile sources that I think we can actually make something important here. And even to Mr. Harris's point, we also looked at some startups that did e-aviation there, and they were looking at it from understanding the cost of future roads are going to get more expensive, and at some point we have to look at what that future is.
So again, thank you. One of these days, I hope that we can hear from Director Cerna when he has a chance to join our board and get his perspective. I want to move on the APCO report. The next item that I'd like to make you aware of is, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Director Frost, sorry.
Thank you. Could you just explain the prototype examples? There were a couple on there that I didn't understand what they were. Sure.
So on the top blue squares is kind of the idea, the innovation center, right? Where OEMs, traditional OEMs and starter companies come up with this idea. And so it's a little too costly for the manufacturers to really fully develop the idea. So they go to the PEM group, and in collaboration with the university students, they allow the university students to problem solve and find a solution for this. They develop a prototype, then the prototype gets tested out within their facilities. Eventually, at some point, they go through the ramping facility process, which means that they go from one prototype to 10 to 50 to 100, eventually to a point to where the traditional OEMs or the starter company says, okay, we're good to roll this out into the commercial market. And that's the idea of the prototype development there.
So what is the Ford Cart E? Ford Cart?
So that was Ford wanting to develop a people mover. Someone stands up on that people mover, and I believe I have a picture of Director Guerra on this. So I'll have to share that with everybody.
Early version of a hoverboard.
It is.
Oh, wow.
It is.
I wondered what that
And so
was.
the prototype examples are, you have Street Scooter on the far left, which serves really the DHL company, which is a delivery company there in Europe. You have some smart bikes or electric bikes, and then you have smaller vehicles for passenger vehicles and light duty, and they also do battery manufacturing on site as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, that was what I wanted to know. What is that? It looks like a box.
Yeah.
That's a hoverboard.
Yeah, it's a personal hoverboard developed by Ford and the PEM group.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Moving along. I'm going to take you on a roller coaster because I'm going to go straight from very good news to very bad news. But again, might as well put it before you. I hope that you heard in the news a couple of weeks ago, there was a very important report that came out of the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And really, this is the what I call the gold standard of the latest science on climate. I mean, this is, the world's top scientists, 91 in this particular case, 44 countries, multi-year effort, lots of people looking at the work that they published. And this is really the reference point. When we talk about taking action on climate, low carbon development, we go to this report to get the latest understanding in terms of why the world has to change, because the planet is in peril. And unfortunately, the latest report is pretty grim. I mean, things are worse than what we thought in the last report, and the extreme change in the climate is going to happen faster than we initially anticipated. I will not go into any of detail. For those of you that are interested, they actually include a very good policymaker summary of the report. If anybody's interested, I invite you to read it. It's only 20-plus pages, very digestible. But the reason I want to highlight this for you is because this is why it's important for us to take local action and why we need to be leaders in driving low-carbon development. Because obviously, as you know, all action is local. And we have a role to play in advancing in an economically responsible way when we see opportunities for low-carbon clean air technology development. This is why we want to do that. So again, what I wanted to alert you to is just the fact that this report is out there. And certainly air districts, air agencies in the U.S., around the world, are paying very close attention to this process.
Mr. Harris?
There we go. Alberto, thanks for bringing this up. You know, you just said something that's pretty remarkable. You said the planet is imperiled, and it's actually true. You know, certainly for me, it informs everything that I do policy-wise. Last night I was at a community meeting, just local in East Sacramento, and people were querying me about why am I allowing developments that are underparked? Why are we doing road diets? Why are we redoing things in the city? And I explained, we're trying to change a paradigm here. And I brought this up. I brought up the IPCC. I said, really, you know, do you want to live, or do you want to be able to drive down Folsom Boulevard at your convenience with one person and one car? And I just explained, look, it's uncomfortable to change a paradigm. But if we don't take this seriously, we're not going to get to enjoy this convenience of one person and one car for much longer. And I actually think for the first time, that kind of rhetoric took hold. So maybe the collective consciousness is raising, but I think it's incumbent upon all of us as policymakers to be very mindful of what we're actually facing here. We're facing the future for our kids, and it's very important. So thanks for bringing this up.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts. I can tell you from my interaction with my former bosses, the members of the Air Resources Board, they're looking at boards like you because they realize that the solutions are going to come from local entities and regions and cities like those represented on this board. That's why, as you know, I feel so passionate about it, and I think the whole agency is behind it because the sense of urgency couldn't be much clearer than what's in this report. And to the extent, again, I think Director Frost wanted the report. I'd be happy to send it to you, the summary for policymakers on this. Happy to expand on this as necessary. So moving on. We're going from good to bad to good. So here's a little bit of hope. I wanted to share with you that we have an ongoing collaboration with our counterparts in the Hong Kong Environmental Protection Department. Why am I saying that? Because I was actually in Hong Kong last week, and I wanted to make you aware of that. EPD is the air quality authority under this Chinese structure of a special administrative region. And Hong Kong is very much a leader, like California and like us, in that they're really pushing for the benefit of their citizens. They've adopted many of the tools that California has put in place, emissions models, rules, SIPs, that sort of thing. But they want to do more. They really want to lead the world, and they are essentially starting from scratch and developing the next generation models for air quality planning for the future. But they wanted advice. So they recruited a number of advisory panel members, and they invited us, the Sacramento District, to participate. Very graciously, they provided funding, not only to support travel, but also the time that we have spent on this. And we're working in partnership with West Virginia University, who's actually the prime, and we are a subcontractor to them. Why I tell you this is because, again, this collaboration is going to be very important to us because, again, they are dealing with the same issue we have. Transportation emissions are the biggest thing. They want to protect their citizens from exposure to combustion pollution. So we are bound to learn some really important lessons that even if we as a region, as an air district, don't have the authority to implement, we have a responsibility to take those lessons and go talk to our friends at the Air Resources Board. So I hope that you agree with me that this is a great thing for us. And again, I just wanted to make you aware that this is an ongoing collaboration. And staying on the good news track, another event that...
Actually, Director Harris, did you have another question? Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
On this one, on the Hong Kong piece.
Go ahead.
So I wanted to also address the point that on the idea of Sacramento being both a research and innovation place, we've been getting an interest from our folks in the East that also have an interest in California being kind of a place for them to invest in this type of technology. So I think there's a lot of pieces moving together that with the effort that Dr. Ayala has been pushing, I think it's not just what folks are doing in Europe, but also in Asia, are interested in how California is going to start addressing this piece. And some of their delegation was out here, a big delegation was out looking at how, if Sacramento is going to be that next target.
We're ready to do what we can to make that happen. The next item is, again, another event that Mr. Lemos and Vice Chair Guerra were point for the Air District. So I'll let them share with us some of their observations.
Great. So last week on October 16th through the 18th, our district helped sponsor the NorCal Clean Technology Forum and Expo produced by the East Bay and Sacramento Clean Cities Coalition and the West Coast Collaborative. The event was held at the McClellan Conference Center. The event focused on forums on zero-emission mobility, policy, technology, innovation, freight technologies, incentives, community air protection, and many more. We also had the privilege of having Director Serna welcome and open up the expo on Wednesday morning. As always, the event highlights are the zero-emission vehicles, ranging from light-duty to heavy-duty vehicles. Envoy, a car-share vehicle, Transtech, a micro-school bus, Thor, a Class 8 tractor truck, an electric yard hustler, BYD electric delivery vehicles, and Danner mobile power station are all up on the screen right now. I wanted to focus a little on the MPS, the Danner Mobile Power Station. It's an electric work vehicle and energy platform that provides multi-function utility for daily off-road maintenance and emergency power for disaster response. The MPS is able to receive a variety of construction add-ons such as forklifts, excavator, front-end loader buckets without any modifications. The MPS is available with remote-controlled technology or with an operator platform. As you could see in the picture, Director Guerra had the opportunity to attend and try out the equipment. And here is Director Guerra.
Oh, this one is the video.
You gotta use the mouse.
Click on it. It's a video, right?
The wheels turn left, right, forward. Yeah, watch out. Okay, I wouldn't work well enough.
This is really exciting because for many years we've been talking about the technology and the innovative technology coming, and we've been waiting and waiting, and so now Here we have these examples of zero-emission technology in a variety of sectors, the light-duty sector, the heavy-duty sector, and in this case, even emergency response. And so, Director Guerra, if there's anything you'd like to add on to that.
Yeah, other than clearly I was never good at remote control vehicles. Maybe not even regular ones. But the unique thing about this technology is we had this major fire and disaster in Napa recently where they lost power, they couldn't get equipment out. That device there, not only can you add every attachment to it, like a driller auger, a backhoe, or any other heavy duty equipment, but it also is a major power supply. I think they could last up to 3 days per that one, so that you could chip one in and people could tap into it and connect into it. So there's a unique role in disaster response and not only reducing our when our heavy duty vehicles might be diesel to get, if we can't get diesel to a location, you've already got these equipment. So it was a unique experience to look at how this technology can help us in disaster response.
Did they give you any idea of the lifespan of the batteries? Because that always seems to be the variable here is that, was it Tesla at 100,000 miles, you're supposed to replace the battery and that's 10 grand or something like that? Did they give you any indication on this type of equipment?
No, we haven't discussed exactly their battery life and technology. However, they did stand behind being able to serve as emergency response for 3 days at a time and be very reliable. And I think the back part of that, what you see on that MPS, is actually the battery pack.
That whole thing, wow.
Yeah, so I think, in my opinion, I think half of the cost of that vehicle would probably be that battery itself.
That vehicle looks like it's a battery.
Yeah, you can add up to 2 massive batteries in configurations where you have one in the front and one in the back, and then be operated by remote control to really have high capacity.
Director Carr had a question.
Eric, how close do you have to be to operate the remote control on that thing? Do you have to maintain a close distance?
when the operator was operating it at the first time, he was almost all the way to the building, pretty far back out. So if you were in a dangerous area, you could also send that down into a place where maybe you don't want a human person operating some heavy equipment.
But you can be in the cabin.
You can also be in the cabin too. So it can be managed in the
either
cabin,
way.
but you can also manage by control.
Yeah, my car will do that too. In fact, I used it to park because the parking places are so tight.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be fairly close to the car in order to use the remote.
Yeah. I think that, a lot of this technology is still advancing. The battery technology is advancing. When we get to scale on this stuff, it's going to be some unique opportunities for us.
Perfect segue, if I may, because just a couple things. This is the reason why we've been so aggressive, and with your help, we're going to do everything we can to attract more cap-and-trade dollars to the region. Because if we can do that, then we will be in a position to invest in this kind of solution for our businesses in the region. So this makes it real in terms of when you hear us talk about investments and incentives, this is the reason why. Because if we don't have the cap-and-trade dollars, this is all good for, dog and pony show, but there's no real benefit. The second thing is battery technology is advancing and is going to become a real solution. It already is a real solution. Don't forget, electric vehicles come in a different flavor. There's the fuel cell technology that could be a solution as well. And that is, as you have heard me say before, another priority for us. Because I do think that regionally we need to make a big play on hydrogen, because in many instances, because as you noted here, maybe the battery is not the right solution, maybe it's a fuel cell stack, and it exists. So another priority for us. So thank you. The last item I have on the APCO report is simply a verbal notice that I'd like to share with you all, particularly those of you that sit on the Sacramento RT board. As you know, the SAC RT has been undergoing an optimization project. You are going to be convening along with the rest of the board members on November 12th to hear the latest results from the optimization project. And we are anticipating making public comment at that meeting. And I want to share with you, again, particularly for those of you that are going to be participating in that discussion, we will be putting together some talking points and comments that we want to share with you. So you know what we're going to say, and you're going to see a memo from the clerk, as you normally see with those points. The reason I'm bringing this up is because, again, we're not going to see you before you have that meeting. And clearly, the position that the district, from an air quality and low carbon development standpoint, is the emphasis from our perspective has to be on ridership, right? We got to get people out of the cars and into the buses or any other alternative mobility. So again, I don't want you to be surprised when you are deliberating the item and you hear a comment from us. Okay, that's the APCO report.
Quick question, Mr. Chair. You mentioned that SMUD had adopted a net zero by 2040. Exactly what does that mean?
Not sure why.
Thank you for noticing that. I reported to you before, and Director Carr missed the September meeting. Thank you. You were doing a very important thing for us, and we'll get to it in a minute. SMUD has been also a leader in the region in terms of really embracing the opportunity to go to net zero carbon. And what the SMUD board has done is really stepped up to do more faster than what the state is doing. And they basically adopted a net zero carbon goal for 2040. Now, you gotta step back and think about this. This is a major electric utility, the 6th largest in the US, and they just committed to get us to zero carbon in 2040. So clearly, that is very important for us, because when we deploy this kind of technology, we gotta make sure that the electrons that go into it are zero carbon electrons, not coal-based electrons, for sure. So that was the action that the SMUD board took. We were there to provide testimony. Actually, it was Mr. Lemus again who provided the testimony. And we are growing the partnership with SMUD because clearly they have a mandate and interest to deploy electrification of transportation, which is very much in line with what we want to do.
I understand. But what does net zero mean?
That means there is no carbon, no CO2 emissions from generation of electricity. And the reason they call it net is because if you do end up burning fossil fuel to generate electricity, you will be offsetting it by doing something else that negates the CO2 produced. So it's essentially a technical term, but the impact is net zero carbon, which is really what the planet cares about. The planet doesn't care where it comes from, as long as we don't emit it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Howe? Okay. With that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. These are deemed routine and non-controversial. Is there anything that needs to be pulled? Do we have any comment?
No, we do not.
Okay.
I'll move consent.
I have a motion by Guerra. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Harris. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Abstentions? Calendar carries. Okay, we'll move on to public hearing items. Item number 9, adopt amendments to Rule 414, and I'm not going to read the rest of that because there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Terry and members of the board. My name is Mark Cooley, and I work in the Rules Development section at the district. I am here today to present amendments to Rules 414 and 419. These rules apply to small boilers and water heaters and larger industrial combustion units such as dryers, ovens, kilns, and asphalt plants.
Oh, sorry.
As you know, the district is responsible for adopting and amending rules as needed. Because the district does not meet health standards for ozone, adopting and amending rules, such as the amendments to Rules 419, reduces emissions, which helps to reduce the formation of ozone. In addition, the district is required by federal and state requirements to reduce emissions and analyzing requiring cleaner technology for new and existing sources. Also, when appropriate, as in the amendments to Rules 414, the district will reduce burden to sources. What do these rules cover already? Well, Rule 414, again, applies to small boilers and hot water heaters. You'll typically find these in homes, hotels, schools, and office buildings. A typical home hot water heater is about 100,000 BTU. A larger industrial one, shown here, can range up to about 1 million BTU. This rule contains emission limits for these devices. Rule 419, as it was adopted in July of this year, currently applies only to major stationary sources of NOx. The amendment today will apply the applicability of that rule to non-major stationary sources that have units rated 5 million or BTU or greater. This amendment was taken in two parts in order to meet EPA timelines, and today we're back again to amend the rule. So how are emissions created from these units? Well, the burning of natural gas and diesel fuel emits NOx and other pollutants. The use of low NOx burners, shown here in the bottom left, reduces the amount of emissions created when burning fuel. And one method of compliance with this proposed rule is to use low NOx burners. As mentioned, the amendment to Rule 414 reduces the burden to sources. Hot water pressure washers, illustrated here in the upper right, are proposed to be exempt from the rule requirements. These units were not previously identified, and other districts have exempted these hot water pressure washers recently from their rules. The reason for this is there's a lack of compliant equipment available today, and they're limited use type of units that are not operated very often and for very long. The amendment to 419 is the second part of the adoption. As mentioned, the rule was adopted in July to meet requirements. Staff took additional time to address some industry comments that we received at a workshop in June. And the proposed rule will meet the state requirements that were identified earlier. No additional units are subject to 414, so I'll now focus on the sources that are subject to 419. There's 14 sources with a total of 19 permitted units that are subject to the rule. These units range anywhere from just over 5 million BTU up to 135 million. The larger units are located at asphalt plants, and the smaller units are manufacturing facilities and industrial bakeries. 12 of the 19 units were identified by staff to potentially not meet the proposed standards. These units may potentially need to be upgraded or replaced with new equipment to use low NOx burners to meet the requirements. And the staff also identified what the potential costs were and included those into the analysis of the rule. Here is a map showing where the affected sources are located. As you can see, the sources are spread throughout the county. And the amendment to Rule 414 will forego some emission reductions, which are offset by the amendments to Rule 419. The amendments to 419 are about 5.5 tons per year. These are significant reductions, but affect far fewer sources than a previous amendment to the boiler rule, which was a much larger reduction, but again, it affected a lot of units. This rule only affects a few. The overall cost effectiveness, based on staff's analysis, including those costs mentioned, was about $7.66 per pound of NOx reduced. Compared to other district rules, this is less than previous ones. Staff finds the proposed rules are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act as an action for the protection of the environment, and there's no possibility of a significant adverse effect on the environment. Consistent with prior rules, staff conducted the outreach shown here. Staff worked very closely with the potential sources, contacting each one directly since there was just a few sources impacted. And we also published notices in the B and sent notices to those who signed up for notifications. And staff's recommendation is for the board to conduct a public hearing, determine the amendments to the rules are exempt from CEQA. Staff recommends the board adopt the resolutions approving the rules and forward those materials to California Air Resources Board for inclusion into the state implementation plan.
This is a public hearing, right? So let me open the public hearing. Do we have any public comment on this?
We do. I have Miss Becky Wood with Tykert.
Okay.
Good morning, Board. My name is Becky Wood, and I'm the Environmental Manager for Tykert Materials. We have 3 units that are affected by this rule, and we have worked with staff to address some of our concerns with the way the rule was originally written, and we are in support of it. I will just, one clarifying comment, just based on the presentation that was just made. This rule was originally in SIP that came out a couple of years ago, and it was removed before the SIP was adopted. And where you say adopting this rule would have no possible environmental impact is not true, because it wasn't adopted in the SIP for the entire non-attainment region. Someone could set up an asphalt plant that met higher emission standards just across the county line in like South Sutter County, and there would be additional truck emissions from such a location to meet the market demand. So while we support this rule, have no problem with it, we really would prefer to see it get into the SIP and become a standard for the entire region to keep the playing field level and make sure that some of those impacts don't happen. So that's my only comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Carr had a comment?
Not a comment, a question.
Sure.
The map with the sources, I'm sorry, the map that you displayed with the sources, do you have anything more definitive? I'd like to know in my district for sure if there are sources, because I'm probably going to hear from these people.
Yeah, I have a map here with all the sources on it. I can give that to you after, or
Yeah, we probably all would like to see it.
yeah, I can send that out. I have a list of sources I can send out too. If you want, I can go over each one on the map right now. But
if you just send it to us, it'll be okay.
And perhaps, can you just give the board a general sense in terms of the nature of the interaction we've had with the sources?
Yeah, with each of these sources, we talked to them on the phone. We visited several of the sources, working with them over the last year or so. So all of them should be aware of it. Again, 7 of the sources are already compliant right now, and the rest are more than aware of it.
I guess I want to make sure the board understands this. Have we heard of any issues with the sources?
No.
Right. That's the key issue, that we've been working with the sources. They understand the rule is coming, but we've been interacting with them so that the impact is not going to lead to any issues. And, you know, the clarification provided by Tykert is a point well taken.
Director Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Just addressing the comment by Ms. Wood from Tykert, I appreciate that you're supportive, and I understand completely that, you know, when you make rules locally, this is a common complaint that when we take an action that people will cross a county line, that we need to level the playing field amongst the whole region. You have to start somewhere, however, and these kind of rules adoptions do spread, and I do anticipate that it will reach a wider geographical area as a result of this action. I don't know, I'd actually like to ask our director, Ayala, if he concurs with that idea.
I'm going to let Mr. Mark Lotzenheiser, the division manager for planning, to address your question and then the point made by Tykert.
Thank you. Mark Lotzenheiser, division manager, program coordination division, also including overseeing the rules. In answer to your specific question, Director Kennedy, yes, typically you do find, I'm sorry, my apologies. I'm looking, the Kennedy one was right in line. I should have known better. So Director Harris, and thank you for that correction. Yes, typically we do find that there is the similar following in the other areas. More specifically to Tykert's question on that, one of the things that's going to be coming up, obviously, and we've talked about this a little bit before with this board, is there was the recent adoption of the 2015 ozone standard, which will require the region as a whole to go through another SIP analysis for that ozone standard. It is very likely that, once again, this rule and the impacts of it will be one of the considerations under the SIP. The one other thing that does happen for new sources when they go in, and maybe to back up just 1 second, this particular rule is what's called a retrofit rule, meaning we look at the cost of implications are looked at a little bit differently when you're requiring an existing facility to make changes versus when we talk about best available control technology, or BACT, which is what is applied when you have a brand new operation coming in. And typically BACT is even more stringent than when we go through on a retrofit rule like this one. So if there were a new operation that was going in an adjoining district, and both from a competition standpoint and just a regional air quality perspective, they will have to be as clean as this rule at a minimum, and possibly even more stringent than what this rule requires. Because if we're already able to require this from a retrofit standpoint, then the expectation is that is sort of the floor, if you will, for a new operation going in. Along those lines, you'll hear a little bit more loosely touching upon this when we give you an update on AB 617, the Community Air Protection Program. One of the element of requirements that came out of that program was a statewide update to the clearinghouse on both BACT and BARCT requirements. And certainly rules like ours are going to be part of that determination. So if there was new competing businesses going in with similar equipment, they'd have to be meeting this level of emission reduction or cleaner going in.
Thank you. That's a great clarification.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I'll move that.
Okay, let me go ahead and close the public hearing. I'll take the motion from Harris and the second from Guerra. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries. That was 9. Now we're moving on to discussion calendar items. I just want to remind staff, I think we have a couple of board members that are going to be in the budget committee that have a hard stop at 10:30. So these next 2 items we do need to dispense with fairly quickly. Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to item 10, which is update on Sacramento Regional Transit new micro transit programs.
So as Mr. Alsh is making his way to the podium, I'll introduce the item. This is a question that Director Fox asked us to come back on. We introduced this about a couple of months ago, and it's a very exciting project for us, and we're very pleased to be working with Mr. Alsh and his organization. So rather than us giving you the update, we went directly to the one that is making things happening on the ground. So
trying to, yeah. Good morning, Chair Terry and Vice Chair Guerra and members of Air Quality Management District. I'm Nathan Olsh. I'm the Executive Director of the Franklin Boulevard Business District, also the Executive Director of the Franklin Neighborhood Development Corporation in South Sacramento. We serve 600 businesses, 160 property owners, 7,000 employees, and have about 10,000 residents that live in our area. We are a predominantly low-income, disadvantaged community. Looking for ways to serve both for economic prosperity initiatives, but also to lower greenhouse gases and improve the lives of our community and the health thereof. Perfect. So this is a quick update as requested. Coming back, we have hit a peak of about 138 riders. I should preface this with the fact that I do not serve or represent RT. However, we are a strong partner in this endeavor to be sure that we provide most available mobility options for our community. So as we're moving forward, we are looking at an increase in ridership. Specifically, the boon of our endeavor here is the fact that we're using more of the app than we are phone calls, which reduces the stress on the call centers and actually provides us an educational moment for the community that we serve, which is predominantly, once again, low income, but more specifically Latino. We have 48% Latinos specifically in our district, not counting that further of South Sacramento, for example, in Councilmember Carr's district, where there's a predominant Asian, Pacific Islander, and or African American community as well. So as we're moving forward, I am not representing you either, Councilmember Carr, but I do want that to be stated that it's serving not just Franklin Boulevard, but other parts of South Sacramento. The trends that we do notice, however, also are the fact that people are connecting to other nodes of transportation, which is exactly what we want, is people to connect from the bus routes to light rail specifically and or other modes of transportation as noted before. What we are looking at, and I'll get into this a little later, are other implementation strategies such as bike share, the jump bike, for example, coming south of Sutterville, and as well as car share, et cetera. So we are seeing a surge once again in the ridership. We assume that will continue. We do have huge marketing outreach. I didn't bring copies, but this is one of the items that we do post up in the business districts. specifically on Franklin Boulevard. This one is in Spanish because of the constituents that we serve in our district, but we also have other partnerships, which include the other PBIDs in South Sacramento, such as Mac Road, Florin Road Partnership, La Familia Counseling Center, one of our most prominent and service-oriented community-based organizations, as well as the Asian Resource as well. North City Farms, a neighborhood association that we serve as well, MLK Avenue, Southland Park Neighborhood Association, Sacramento Children's Home, and we also put this out in the events that we serve for our community as well to let them know that this is transpiring. The biggest barrier that we have is actually the educational component of allowing people to know that this is available. There's a huge upfront cost, if you will, in terms of the labor and getting the word out there. Also, obviously, the cost of the materials that we put out. But we're trying to figure out ways to get that information out. So Facebook groups, for example, or El Face as we call it in Spanish, but also looking at other modes that we can get the word out there. So we're looking at putting a radio ad out on a Spanish radio station here in the next few weeks as well to let people know about microtransit and specifically the other modes of transportation for our folks. That said, we have several other current investments along Franklin Boulevard and in South Sacramento. So to Councilmember Harris's point, we are looking at complete streets, so road diet, if you will, looking at the implications of that specifically for not only the business community, but for our neighborhoods as well in the communities that we serve. Walkability is a core component to reducing greenhouse gases and specifically allowing people to ride their bikes in our district. So along with microtransit, we do have complete streets. That's a $20 million project that we're looking at. We've applied for about $11 million this year. Hopefully we'll get it. And then we were awarded recently the TCC Planning Grant, which is a Transformative Climate Communities, allowing us to be able to provide a planning document, what we're calling the Franklin Playbook, and allowing us to be able to look and identify opportunities, funding, and partners for the initiatives that we plan to implement in partnership with the Air Quality Management District and other government agencies. That said, just really quick, once again, some of the other mobility options we're looking at to reducing carbon footprint and specifically greenhouse gases. Jump bike would be a great opportunity for us, but once again, because of the infrastructure issues that we have on Franklin Boulevard and other parts of South Sacramento, we're looking at investing in our infrastructure specifically to allow for some of these other investments that come down the pike. So we are ready for it when we're implementing, and then also on the educational level to let people know about what is car share, what is microtransit, what are those orange bikes that are floating around. They're floating around in our district. They're not supposed to be per se, but we find them laying around, and that's actually a great educational moment for us because then we get to talk to our residents and the business owners about what could happen. There is a demand for it. There's discussions informally and formally about what options do we have or could we have. Jump bike is by far one of the highest demands in our neighborhoods, specifically south of Curtis Park, to allow people to access other businesses in our district. We have some pretty good breweries as well in our district that people want to access, but they want to drive to. So, and also with the jump bike will allow us
really
to...
Quick. We have a question from Director Harris, and somehow somebody hit Phil Cerna's button.
Oh. The ghost of...
Aha, Director Hansen. There we go. Director Harris, then we'll take Director Hansen.
Actually, I didn't have a question at this point, but since I have the floor, I'll just say, Nathan, you're doing a great job of bringing mobility options to an underserved neighborhood. And when we worked, Director Hansen and I, of course, worked on the bike share committee for 3 years, I think, to get jump bike. We
Congrats, by the way. Yeah, that's great.
we were very concerned about the equity piece.
Correct.
And it's really enlivening to hear that jump bike can be embraced in the Franklin community. I think it's awesome. And we're finding this all over the city. We're finding jump bikes everywhere. It's because people are using them to get from here to there. They're really becoming a true mobility option. And I appreciate all the work you're putting into your community to make these options available. It's a great job.
Thank you, Director Harris.
Director Hansen.
Did you push the button? Hmm? You gotta push the next button. There you go. Good job.
You're already on.
You were already on. I turned it on. We're still teaching him. This is his last board meeting after 2 years in chair.
That's true.
It's okay. I just wanted to say that, well, it's not been publicly announced, but there is going to be an expansion of Jump South. And so I think it's really exciting. The map hasn't come out, but the overall
enthusiasm for the program has been unmatched by any city in the country.
That's
and
right.
as of last Wednesday, the number I saw was 640,000 miles ridden so far on our jump bike system, making it the most successful e-bike system ever launched. And so the additional capacity by expanding the service territory and hopefully more bikes will probably also be necessary north to areas of North Sac and South Natomas, although the connectivity is not as good. But I wanted to, if you didn't know the good news, which it sounds like you do.
A little bit, but yeah.
Okay, good.
But publicly, we can say.
No, we're not really making an announcement. I just think it's important for people to
Yeah.
know that success begets success. And our hope was in launching a successful pilot that it could grow. And I really think our staff here, because the program started at the Air District and then got to a certain point of development and then was handed off to SACOG because it was a 3-city program, it has been enormously successful.
Yep.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Guerra had
Yeah,
a comment.
thank you. Yeah, no, I want to just thank you, Nathan, because I think the work you're doing, along with bringing also the Stockton Boulevard Partnership folks. I mean, many of our commercial corridors are facing with these similar issues, and even on the jump bike expansion, we've seen a huge demand of folks who want to use it. I mean, we've got libraries in the south area that are not accessible except for one bus line, and so having this opportunity for parents or other folks people who are trying to use our libraries for places to do resumes, and just the issue of economic mobility, not just mobility to get somewhere from here to there, is important. So, and we're excited about it moving further south and expanding. And the biggest complaint I get is I see that there's this special pricing for folks who are low income, but it doesn't reach the low income community.
Exactly.
So I'm glad that we're moving forward, and your test case and the work out there, I think, has been helpful, particularly with the on-demand transit. That's shown the test case that it can work in other places.
Thank you.
And I would just say, I can't wait for you to be looking beyond the city of Sacramento. Yes. I think there's many of us that are interested in this technology within our own community.
We did look beyond. We looked at West Sacramento and Davis.
Look the other way.
Wrong direction.
where more people work, I'm saying.
Ooh.
Director Carr.
Nathan, did you finish your presentation?
I'm sorry?
Did you finish the presentation?
Yeah, I'll conclude it
Could
here.
you go back to the ridership slide? Yeah. And maybe you or somebody from the RT board, I think we got some RT board members here. What's the break-even point? How many riders do we need in order to self-sustain?
It's a question I asked, and I don't know if somebody else has a better answer for that, but I don't know if there is, to be honest with you. But it's getting people from our standpoint. Our goal mission is, as you probably know, is getting people from point A to point B. That I don't know if you can, so to speak, put a price on it, but I think ridership is very important, and this is actually allowing people to take public transportation in other cases that they probably wouldn't have.
Yeah,
So,
well, we're probably not at break even yet, but
yeah,
at some point, it has to sustain itself.
exactly right. Yep.
And I think it's important if we know what that number is.
Yeah, and I think because we're still piloting and trying to figure that out, and once again, I'm not speaking on behalf of RT, but some of the conversations we've had internally, we're figuring that out with the data points that we're collecting at this, specifically for our areas in South Sacramento. So
That's a great point, Director Carr. And from the Air District perspective, this is a reason why we are happy to partner with Sacramento RT and also with our friends across the river in West Sacramento, where they are trying a microtransit solution, but it's a private venture with the VIA system. We want to educate ourselves to make sure that these are new solutions. So clearly, we're not going to be there for a while, but to the extent that we find something that works, then we can at least do what we can to promote it and eventually get it to a sustainable fiscal situation.
Glad path.
I should mention, because of the investment that's happened through RT and our partner agencies, Electrify America has come forward, and they're going to invest millions of dollars into the infrastructure, and by Q1, Q2 of next year, swap the carbon vehicles for electric shuttles and buses.
I've got to say, we got another comment or question from Director Frost, but I will say that between electric aircraft and electric vehicles, boy, we really like to dig into these things. These have been probably the most robust conversations that I've had in the last couple of years on this board. Director Frost?
Yeah, on that same page, I wanted to go back to the reservation source, because I think that, it seemed like there was in one of our conversations, we were talking about the cost associated with actually having people there to take phone reservations, and we talked about possibly offering an incentive. They get a free ride if they do it on the phone app or whatever, just to get them used to using the phone app. Did RT do anything like that? I love their others. They're using all kinds of incentives, which I think is awesome.
Right. So we're pushing it when we're out in the community personally. I know our organization is, along with our community partners. I don't know the stats, sorry, at this point, but I can get that.
But one thing I do want to say, Director Frost, is in one of the lessons that we learned from our community car share program is at this point we need to make sure that we do what we can to provide access, because not everybody's going to have a phone. Not everybody's going to have a phone with the app, so it's not going to be a smartphone. So we just talked a minute ago about reaching the right people. So at this point in time, I think is resources well spent if we just get the program going. And once people become familiar, hopefully we'll get there.
Especially the seniors, they're not technology oriented, so they want to pick up the phone.
And that's absolutely right. To that point, that we are doing targeted marketing, if you will, specifically for certain demographics, and that's one of the concerns, most definitely. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for staff? This was a discussion item, right? There's no action?
There's no action needed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So with that, we'll move on to item 11, Community Air Protection Program Community Selection Update.
As a means of introduction, I want to acknowledge and thank Director Carr. He missed the September meeting of our board because he was across the street testifying on our behalf in front of the Air Resources Board. We want to bring you the latest in terms of the important decision that happened at that board, and maybe after the staff presentation, if Director Carr wants to offer his perspective, and really want to acknowledge and appreciate the fact that you stepped out and helped us out.
Good morning, Chair Terry and members of the board. My name is Janice Lamb-Snyder, and I'm the program manager for the air monitoring, planning, and data analysis sections. So today I'm going to be giving a really brief update on the selection of the first-year communities that was adopted by the California Air Resources Board. As you can remember, the board signed a resolution back in July to authorize the APCO to submit a selection of 10 communities in Sacramento to be considered for the Community Air Protection Program. In last September, just this past September, CARB adopted the South Sacramento Florin General Area as one of the 10 communities across the state to be a part of this first-year implementation. One of the key updates that we heard at the CARB board hearing is that, one, there was 10 communities that they selected, and that was across 6 districts: Sacramento, San Joaquin Valley, South Coast, Bay Area, Imperial, and San Diego. And one of the key message that we heard at the board hearing was that the communities that are selected for monitoring for the first year will be a priority for community emission reduction plans for the following year. So our community that has been selected right now for the first year for monitoring will be a priority possibly for community emission reduction plans. Another thing that we heard at the board hearing was that there needs to be significant inclusion of community members and engagement. This is a ground-up approach, and so one of the ways that the state board is ensuring that this happens is to have the districts convene a steering committee, an air quality steering committee, to help guide in our efforts for monitoring and our community emission reduction plans. And so the steering committee should favor the people, should be comprised of the people who live and work there in the community. So what is the district doing for outreach? We have a solicitation out for volunteers to serve on the Air Quality Steering Committee. We released an application and a letter to community members in in that community, and the application is due back to the district on November 9th. I brought a package of applications for our directors, if you know any community members that live in that area, so that they can apply to be in the steering committee. We outreach to residents, schools, hospitals, and local businesses and NGOs in that area. We will be holding a public meeting on November 1st to provide more information to the community about what the steering committee will, what the duties are, the expectations, and the type of feedback that we're looking for. And then the first steering committee meeting is going to be scheduled the last week in November. Resources for implementation for AB 617. The district received initial funding to do the work, doing the initial outreach, participating in calls, but the state legislature allocated $50 million for each year for the next couple of years for the state to implement AB 617. So the district's allocation for the first year, we are expected to be receiving. But for years 3 and beyond, there is no secured funding yet. So we will be working very hard with the folks over at the Capitol, as well as with CARB to hopefully to identify the funding to implement this program. So just really quickly, the additional elements of AB 617, you have adopted an accelerated BARC schedule earlier today. There's going to be enhanced emissions reporting from cap and trade sources and sources within those communities, and then incentive funding will also play a big role as part of AB 617 to reduce emissions in the community. There are lots of opportunities with AB 617, and it is really to improve the air quality and reduce the risk at our most needed communities. Like we mentioned, cap and trade funds are closely tied with AB 617 communities, and zero emission programs are going to be a key to reducing this risk. In addition to that, innovative emission reduction programs are going to need to be developed, strategies, thinking outside the box, and that will be a model for the rest of the communities here in Sacramento in reducing that risk, as well as across the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? No.
No questions, but I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead.
So this is a big coup for us, and I want to thank you for staff for putting this together and lobbying and getting us as one of only 10 regions in the whole state for increased monitoring. And what that will mean is when implementation time comes, the resources will come to the community. What I stressed when I was speaking to the Air Resources Board was that they have some flexibility. We know they have to draw a line on the map, but air quality doesn't stay within the lines. And so when implementation time comes, we need to make sure that we can go beyond the lines that were drawn on the map. They didn't make a firm commitment on that, but reading the body language told me that they would do that when implementation time comes. So thank you for all the hard work that you've done on this. We really appreciate it. And the people in South Sacramento who will never know your name will benefit from what you've done.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Carr. So with that, do we have any public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay. Any board ideas or announcements? Go ahead, Director Harris.
I'd just like to say, tagging on to some comments that were made earlier, I also returned from China recently and was amazed at the improvement of air quality in 3 years that they had attained. Of course, in a totalitarian society, you can affect change a little more quickly than you can in a free country. And they've done just that. In our sister city of Jinan, 3 years ago, their AQI was over 300 most days of the year. I mean, it was extreme. Their visibility was down to 100 yards on many days. And in my recent visit, their quality was below 100 and 70 on some days. And visibility was not unrestricted, but it was probably 10 miles. So amazing changes, and they affected this by largely going to nuclear power and taking some of their older coal plants and either shutting them down or moving operations to a different country, which is also something they can affect. But I spoke with the Environmental Defense Fund folks in Beijing, and China is taking climate change very, very seriously and are quickly moving into a leadership role where they had been a roadblock 7 years ago. So it's very encouraging to see the change in this extremely populous country and to see what can be affected in just 3 short years.
Thank you. Director Frost.
I just wanted to put a shout out regarding our SACOG has launched a youth leadership program, and I believe you can go to sacog.org/youth to learn about it, but this is a great opportunity for young high school students to be part of a leadership program where they can engage with policymakers, go on field trips, learn about transportation and policy and innovative things that are coming to our region. And it's also a great opportunity for them to put a great certificate in their resume. And so I just wanted to let everyone know about it so you could share it with your constituents and invite them to be a part of it. I think there's a sign-up period and it ends the end of this month, so there's not a whole lot of time to share about it.
Thank you. Anything else? With that, we will adjourn into closed session. Or no?
No.
I'm sorry. We're adjourned, and now we're going to have a budget committee meeting. Thank you.